from Walfinch, and today Wellness with Walfinch has brought us to Buckinghamshire, where I'll be interviewing Dr Nik, who's the founder of the Doctor's Lounge. Thanks, Dr Nik. So, if I want to improve my stability, in my 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond, why should I do it and how do I do it?
It's a good question, why, right? So, I've said to so many of my patients that exercise, most people see as exercise as being running or at least going for long walks or getting down to the gym, right? The reality is stability is there to, yes, help us to function on a day-to-day basis. But if you think over the years, we all lose muscle, right? We all lose muscle. No matter how strong we have been, the strongest person will lose muscle. So if you lose muscle, what are your muscles doing? Your muscles are supporting your joints. And if your muscles get weak, your joints then start to take the load. Right? So if you imagine someone that is very overweight, for example, there is a lot of load going through the knees or the hips. Now you take away that muscle, all of that force is going through the joint, so it's going through the hip, through the knees, you're going to start getting pain. Right? So pain is a common reason why people come to see us for their joint issues. Right? They don't often come to us to say, I feel like I'm getting stiff.
Yeah.
Right? They just don't. People just accept I'm getting stiff. So there's an element around flexibility, but when you talk about stability, the reason is the fall rate increases over the age of 80, and it increases quite exponentially. And the mortality rate or the death rate that comes as a result of falls is so high. So it's got an impact on obviously the patients themselves. That has an impact on families, but it has a huge impact on the healthcare service. So there are lots of figures around how many people go into hospital over the age of 80 and with a hip fracture, and the numbers are, I can't remember the numbers, but they are quite staggering. But it's also the number of people that don't make it past that next year because of the fall. So as medics, we're really, really keen to get stability part of people's routine. Most people are talking about it when they're kind of, in your 80s and you had your fall, okay? Let's get you more stable. Okay? And that's great, of course you need to do that. But actually, why wait until the fall happens? Yeah. Let's get you stable so that you don't fall, right? So I've got plenty of patients where I either have got them into the gym not to go and lift weights. It's not lifting weights. It might be as simple as, with a trainer, we talk about the sit to stand, right? So you're sitting on a chair just like this, and you're standing, but trying to stand without having to push yourself up, right? And if you think about what we all do, where we all kind of do this when we get older, right? You see people doing that, but actually you're putting your force through other joints.
Yeah.
So what we're really trying to do is getting people to get that pelvis, so that's the kind of around the hip joints, get those thigh muscles as strong as they can be, so that we can move better, we can be more stable, we don't have the falls, we don't have the pain in the joints, all the things that we tend to associate with old age. We can't prevent them completely, but we can delay them, we can minimize them, but only if we're proactive. And I mean that as medics, but also as a patient, right? General public, we should all be thinking ahead. How can I get more stable? Right?
It's a very interesting thing that you speak about muscle mass. So I was reading Peter Attia's Outlive, and I think we spoke about it a while back. And one of the really simple things he was talking about there was talking about when you start losing muscle mass post the age of 40 or 50, whatever it is, that it starts to deplete. When you're much older, what is it that you want to do? You want to play golf, play with your grandkids, tie your shoelaces. So how much muscle mass do you need to add today to get there? Which I thought was a really simple but very neat way of summing it up.
Absolutely right. And look, the other thing that we talked about just before we started filming today was around planning. Right? We talked about planning, and you can plan for so many things, right? You plan for your finances, you plan for your health, you can plan for your kids, etc. But if we're just talking about health from a health point of view, it isn't always about, people talk about cholesterol, heart disease, but actually what we should be planning for is how do we want to live, right? So, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're thinking about what career do I want to be in, maybe, right? When you're in your 40s, you're thinking, how am I going to retire, right? But we should also be thinking about how do we want to live our last 20 odd years, right? Because that is where it becomes more difficult. You speak to anyone over the age of 70, they will always tell you, at the moment I'm still thought of as a young doctor, right? That's going to change. They'll all say to me, oh, it's all right for you, Nick. You know, you're still young, right? And they always talk about the fact that it just gets more difficult, right? So what gets more difficult? You get pain in the mornings when you wake up. You feel stiff. You can't react so quickly. You can't move your joints so quickly. So life is just a little bit more difficult, and that gap will start to increase and increase. So we need to narrow that gap. So the muscle mass piece is around how can we give people their independence. How can we give them their strength to be able to do the functions that they want to do? Right? So sit down and write it down. Right? What do I want to do in my 70s and 80s? I play golf now. I want to be doing that. I knit right now. I want to be using my hands. Well, if I don't do anything around flexibility with my fingers, well, we'll probably get some stiffness. Now, you can't prevent everything, but you can certainly minimise. Of course, some people are going to have medical issues that they couldn't have done anything about. But if we talk about the general population, we all get stiff, we all get aches, pains. We can minimise that. Flexibility, so I'll give you my own story. I get some neck troubles and, due to play golf in a couple of days' time and suddenly get neck spasm. I decided actually, I better do my exercises that I'd forgotten to do, And so much better having done a half an hour exercise on my neck. Why am I not doing that every day? And of course, I preach and it's great, but I've got to do it myself. And waiting till the problem comes, we always do it. We all do it, and of course, there's reasons why that happens. But if we can build into our life small little lifestyle changes, I wake up in the morning as I'm doing my teeth. I stand on one leg. I don't know if you've heard of people doing that. You stand on one leg, and it's building that stability in the hips. It didn't take any more time. Now, everyone's going to have their own little way of doing things, but we have to plan, right? So we have to think about it, otherwise it's not going to just suddenly happen. So look, you asked why we do it. That's a long-winded way of saying we're going to get older, we're going to get joint problems, we're going to get problems with stability. Well, let's plan for the future. And then I guess you asked me, how do we do it? Look, there are physiotherapists that give all sorts of exercises, but let's just keep it simple. The sit to stand exercise for those that is appropriate for. So of course, someone like me, that's not an exercise for me. So really, I've got to start working at a higher level of building the muscle in my thighs, building the stability in the buttock muscles, so the butt muscles, so that you've got a strong pelvis. Because that's where most of the load is going to be taken, right? And it's going to take it away from the joints. And it might be working with a trainer. It might just be getting on some YouTube videos and watching. There are some great videos out there. I tend to encourage people to at least once or twice try and get a professional with them, because what you don't want to do is do an injury and then you're recovering, right? So I tend to try, but not everyone wants to sit with a trainer. Not everyone wants to see a physio, but hugely beneficial. Even for people that go to the gym all the time. Can you get more out of that half an hour exercise if you're with someone or someone has told you what you should be doing? So I believe that's a good way of managing it. Everyone's different and everyone has different accessibility to those types of things. But lots of videos. I mean, Joe Wicks did amazing for the young, middle age and also the older age population, right? He just got exercise as part of our lives. And he does some great work, and there are some other people, but there are so many sources of information. I mean, people's GP, we do it all the time with our patients, but people's GP will direct them to certain areas, but we can take accountability for ourselves, right? We can go out and find, how do I prepare for the future? Type it into Google, right? How do I prepare how do I stop falls in the future? It's not difficult. Simple exercises, sit to stand, standing on one leg, some people have shoulder troubles, and shoulder troubles, of course, they then stop being able to drive. So the flexibility of the shoulder, and that can be as simple as lifting a can, that you've got in the house, and just making sure you're getting free range of movement. So it can be really simple. We can make it a little bit more complicated, but get some specialists involved. But people don't have to spend vast amounts of money to get more flexible and to get more stable. Walking is one of the best forms of exercise. I have patients that have cured their diabetes from walking. Right? It doesn't have to be getting on medication. It doesn't have to be running. It puts people off. Start walking. I think there's I forget the name of the lady who did a video on trying to get people into certain habits, right? And she was a trainer for people that want to get running. And she asks them to do, I think it's like a minute a run. So it's getting your shoes on, get your shorts on, or your whatever it is, your running trousers and your t-shirt on, and getting out the door.
Yeah.
So her idea is let's build the habit of getting your stuff on and getting out the door first, right? Because the going for a 5k run or a 10k run or a marathon is just too big a goal for many people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that difficult, and that could just be a walk.
Yeah.
How many of us really think about walking on a daily basis, right? And you know, our rates of falls are going up, our osteoporosis, so that's the thinning of the bones, is increasing. We've got to be doing something to prevent all those things, you know? And stability exercises, but activity is huge.
Great, thank you.
So stability, a few things that I would do to increase stability as the years go by. Make sure you sleep well. Once you sleep well, you'll always exercise better. Get some flexibility. So in the morning, if you can, the first thing is do 5 to 10 minutes of flexibility training for the core, for the back, for the legs. Start getting yourself prepared for doing more intense exercise. Next thing I would be doing is getting some strengthening. So that might be as straightforward as walking, but really what we want to try and get people to do is to sit to stand, so sitting from a chair, standing up without using your hands. Second thing I'd be doing is some squats. So some people find it easier to stand against a wall and try and bend down so that their legs are at a 90-degree angle, and seeing how long they can hold that for. And sometimes lunging